Hi everyone, welcome back to our crochet along series. This is potholder number 12, the Love Bomb Potholder. So it is named because of these beautiful hearts that this pattern creates. It uses a combination of half double crochets, single crochets, chain stitches, and double crochets to achieve this look. This is the front side and this is the back side. Both sides are usable. And there is an invisible side seam here. Before we dive in, let's take a look at our Crochet-Along Spotlight, which features a few of our amazing crocheters in this series. Alright guys, without further ado, here are the materials that you are going to need to make your potholder. Alright guys, before we get started, you are going to need 3 stitch markers. These are essential because we are going to be changing colors and kind of carrying our yarn as we go, and we're going to be turning at the end of each round like we did with potholders number 1 to 6. So because of that, we need to mark the first and last stitch of each round. If you don't have stitch markers, you can use safety pins, you can use bobby pins, whatever you need to make this work. Alright guys, first thing that we're going to do is make a slip knot, place it on our hook and tighten it up. Now we are going to chain 31 and that will give us a 7.5 by 7.5 inch potholder. If you'd like to make a custom size potholder, you need to chain a multiple of 6 and then add 1 to the end of your chain. Alright guys, to start round 1, we are going to go into our second chain from the hook. So this is our first chain, this is our second chain. So we're going to yarn over and make a half double crochet. So insert your hook into that second chain, yarn over and draw up a loop. So we have 3 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. This is our first stitch of the round, so we are going to mark this stitch with our stitch marker. Going into the next chain underneath the top loop, we're going to make a half double crochet, and we're going to half double crochet into each chain across until we get to our last chain. Alright guys, when we get to our last chain, we're going to make a corner stitch, and so to do that we're going to make 2 half double crochets all into the same chain. So 1, 2. So this is what round 1 looks like so far. At this point we're going to rotate our work so that we're working along the bottom of our chain. Now this is our corner chain. We just worked into that one, so we're going to skip over it and we're going to go into the next chain. So this one here. Go underneath the bottom loop and we're going to make 1 half double crochet, and we're going to do this all the way across, making 1 half double crochet into each chain. Alright guys, when we get to our last chain, it's this one here. This one on the other side, that's our beginning chain 1 that we skipped and that didn't count as a stitch. So we're going to go into this last chain here and we're going to make our final half double crochet of the round. This should line up with our first half double crochet of the round. And again, we are going to mark this stitch with our stitch marker. That way we don't lose track. Okay, we're gonna find our first stitch of the round, which is this one here marked by our stitch marker, and you can remove this stitch marker but you don't have to. If you can get your hook in there, insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over pull through the stitch, and pull through the loop on your hook, and that makes a slip stitch and closes the round. So this is what round 1 looks like. To start round 2, we're going to turn our work so that we're looking at the back side of round 1 stitches. Okay, so we're going to chain 1, and this chain 1 never counts as a stitch. And we're going to find our first stitch of the round, which is marked by our stitch marker. So we're going to remove it, but keep track of it. And we're going to insert our hook into that stitch and make a half double crochet. Now again, this is our first stitch of the round, so we're going to remark this stitch with our stitch marker, and going all the way around in each stitch we're going to make 1 half double crochet. This is what round 2 is looking like so far. We're coming up around our corner, so just take your time with it. Find your stitches, go underneath both loops, and make 1 half double crochet in each stitch. So now we've gone around our corner, and now we're working along the other side of our pot holder. Okay guys, at this point we've reached our last stitch of the round, which is marked by our stitch marker. So we're going to remove this stitch marker, insert our hook into that stitch, and make our final half double crochet. Now mark this with your stitch marker, and we're going to find our first stitch of the round marked by our stitch marker. You can remove it if you'd like to, but if you can insert your hook without it, then try that. We're going to insert our hook into that stitch and make a slip stitch. So yarn over, pull through the stitch and the loop on your hook, and that closes our round. For round 3, we are going to be using color B. So we'd like to keep this yarn attached if we can to avoid weaving in extra ends. So what we're going to do is we're just going to pull up on the loop on our hook, remove our hook. Okay, so we have this loop here, and we're going to mark our loop with a stitch marker, and that just holds it in place so that it won't come undone. Now our yarn will still remain attached to our pot holder. We don't have to fasten off, and when we need it for round 4, we can just pick it back up. So this is what round 2 looks like. As you guys can see, it's starting to curl in on itself and make a pouch, which is exactly what we want. Alright guys, so this is what round 2 looks like. When we get to round 3, we're going to kind of flip our work inside out, so that what we're going to see is that round 2 stitches are on the back side and the front side of round 1 stitches are facing us. This is going to be known as the right side of our pot holder, so the side that we prefer. So what we're going to do now is we're going to find our first stitch. This is right here. We're going to skip the first 3 stitches, so 1, 2, 3, and we're going to insert our hook into that 4th stitch. Pick up your new color, color B, loop it over your finger, and make sure there's a long enough tail that you can weave in your ends later. Pick up color B with your hook and pull it through the stitch, and now we've fastened on, and we're going to chain 2. Now this is going to be our heart row, which means that we are going to be making cluster stitches, and so to do that I'm going to show you. So we're going to yarn over, we're going to insert our hook into that same stitch, yarn over and draw up a loop so that we have 3 loops on our hook. we're going to yarn over and just pull through the first 2 loops. Perfect. So we have 2 loops remaining. Now we're going to do that 2 more times. So we're going to yarn over again, insert our hook into that same stitch, yarn over and draw up a loop. So this time we have 4 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through just the first 2 loops. Okay, so we have 3 loops on our hook. One more time. Yarn over, insert our hook into that stitch, yarn over and draw up a loop. So we have 5 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through just the first 2 loops. Okay, so this is what we want to see. We have 4 loops on our hook, and if you guys notice, so this is our chain 2, which doesn't count as anything, but you can see here we have almost 3 partial stitches. 1, 2, 3, which is exactly what we want. We're going to yarn over and pull through all 4 loops. That makes our first cluster stitch. And so at this point, you guys can kind of tug on your tail, and that will tighten things up in your chain 2. All right, now we're going to chain 2. This is our first half of our heart. So we're going to make the second half. So we're going to make another cluster. So yarn over, insert your hook into that stitch, yarn over and draw up a loop so you have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops. We're going to repeat that 2 more times. Third time. Okay guys, we know that we've done this right if we have 4 loops on our hook and we have 3 partial stitches. So yarn over, pull through all 4 loops, and that makes our second cluster. And now we're going to chain 2. Alright guys, so we just made our first heart. So we're going to do that again, but this time, before we do it, we're going to skip 5 stitches. So count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This will be our 6th stitch. Going into our 6th stitch, we're going to make our next heart. So insert your hook under both loops and make a cluster. We should have 4 loops on our hook and 3 partial stitches. So yarn over, pull through all 4 loops, chain 2, make your second cluster going into that same stitch. Yarn over, pull through all 4 loops, okay, and chain 2. So this is what it's looking like so far. We're going to do this all the way around. So we're going to skip 5 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and going into the next stitch, that 6th stitch, we're going to make our next heart, which is a cluster. Chain 2. Cluster, chain 2. Okay, when you kind of go around your corner, remember skip 5 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Going into that 6th stitch, make your cluster, chain 2, cluster, chain 2, all into the same stitch. Okay guys, once you've made your last heart stitch, your cluster, chain 2, cluster, chain 2, you're going to notice that there are 2 stitches remaining, and so we're going to skip over those. And we know that we've done this right because at the beginning of the round we skipped 3 stitches. At the end we skipped 2 stitches, which makes a total of 5 stitches that we skipped between the first and last heart. Okay, so before we close the round, what we're going to do is, let's say color A, your purple, this purple strand here, let's say it was hanging like this. Well, what we want to do is we want to make sure that this strand, so our stitch marker, is tucked inside of our pot holder, and we also want to make sure that the strand is also tucked inside of our pot holder. Okay, it just makes it easier when we go to grab our yarn next round. Okay, so we're gonna find our first cluster, which is right here. Okay, so this is our chain 2, and then this is our cluster stitch. So go underneath both loops, and we're gonna make a slip stitch to close the round. Okay, so we're not going to carry color B, we're going to fasten off. So we're going to yarn over and pull through the loop on our hook. Keep pulling to make a long enough tail that you can weave it in later. And we're going to trim it. Now we're going to pull it tight to close that knot. Okay, so we don't need color B anymore. So this is what round 3 looks like. And you're gonna notice that this side is okay. There's not much of a gap, but there is quite a big gap, it feels like, here between our first and last heart. This is normal, and it's all gonna go away next round, I promise. Alright guys, we're at round 4, and so what we would normally do, this is the right side of our pot holder, right? So the right side of our odd numbered rows are facing us, and for round 4 we would basically be working along the inside of our pot holder, but when it's small like this, it's a little hard to work into. So what we can do, instead of just like turning our work and making sure that we're working along this edge, we can just flip our work inside out. Okay, so the back side of round 3 stitches are facing us, which we want. And look at that. Now our purple yarn, color A, is just hanging on the, it's basically on the outside of our pot holder, so we can reach it. Alright, so we're going to find that large loop that we left. We're going to remove our stitch marker, and we're going to insert our hook into that loop, and then with your long tail, just tug on it to pull it tight on our hook. Okay, so this is kind of where we're starting. We're starting between our first and last heart. Okay, we're going to chain 2 to start round 4, and we're going to go into that first stitch marked by our stitch marker right here. So we're going to remove our stitch marker, and we're going to make a double crochet. So to do that, we're going to yarn over, we're going to insert our hook into that first stitch. Basically, this is going into round 2 rounds below, and we're going to insert our hook so that it's kind of sticking out the back side of our pot holder, and so that the chain 2 space from round 3 is hanging on top of our hook. That way we can crochet over top of that chain 2. So we're going to yarn over and draw up a loop. So we have 3 loops on our hook. So we're going to yarn over, pull through just the first 2 loops, yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops. So that makes our double crochet, and we're going to mark that with our stitch marker because that's the first stitch of the round. And we're going to chain 1. And now do you guys see that we've worked over top of that chain 2, which is exactly what we want. Okay, So we have technically a stitch down here, right, that is unworked, but we're going to skip over it, and we're going to skip over our first cluster stitch, and we're going to go into this center chain 2 between our clusters. So in here, we're going to insert our hook and make a single crochet, chain 1. Okay, we're going to skip over our next cluster, and we're going to work into these stitches here from round 2. So we have 5 skipped stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to skip the first one, so we're going to skip this one. We're going to go into that second one. So right here, insert your hook into that stitch. Make sure that your chain 2 is hanging over top of our hook, and we're going to make a double crochet into that stitch. Okay, into the next stitch, we're going to do the same thing and make a double crochet. Into the next stitch, we're going to do the same thing and make a double crochet. At this point, we're going to chain 1, and we have one more unworked stitch that we're just going to skip over. So skip this one, skip your cluster, and we're going to go into that center chain 2 space here and make a single crochet, chain 1. So that's our repeat. So I'm going to show you one more time. Okay, we're going to skip our cluster, and we're going to be working into the 5 skipped stitches from round 2. We're going to skip over that first stitch, go into the next stitch, that second one. Make sure you're working over top of your chain 2 space, and make a double crochet in the next 2 stitches, chain 1. We're going to skip over that last half double crochet and the first cluster. We're going to go into our center chain 2 space, make a single crochet, chain 1. When you get to your corner, it's the same thing, so make sure you count your stitches, skip over that first half double crochet, go into the next 3 half double crochets and make a double crochet in each. Chain 1, skip that last half double crochet and the first cluster and make a single crochet, chain 1 into that center chain 2 space. Okay, so this is what it looks like on one side of our pot holder. This is our corner, and then we're working along the other side of our pot holder. So we just worked into our last chain 2 space of our heart. We made a single crochet, chain 1, and at this point, if you look here, after our last heart, there should be 3 stitches remaining. 1, 2, and then this third one that's marked. Okay, so skip over the first one, go into the second one, work over top of your chain 2, and make a double crochet. When you get to your last stitch, remove your stitch marker and insert your hook and make a double crochet. Okay, we're gonna mark this last stitch with our stitch marker, and we're gonna find our first marked stitch. You can remove it, but if you can do it without it, try to insert your hook into that stitch, yarn over, pull through the stitch and the loop on your hook to make a slip stitch, and this closes the round. So this is what round 4 looks like. So for round 5, we're going to kind of flip our work inside out. There we go. So for round 5, make sure that our right side is facing us. So we're looking at the back side of round 4 stitches. We are going to chain 1. We're going to find our first stitch of the round, remove our stitch marker, and we're going to make a half double crochet into that first stitch. Mark this stitch with your stitch marker. Into the next stitch, this is our second double crochet. We're going to insert our hook and we're going to make a half double crochet again. This is a chain 1 space here between this stitch and our single crochet. So we're going to insert our hook into that space and we're going to make 1 half double crochet. We're going to insert our hook into that single crochet and we're going to make a half double crochet, and we're going to insert our hook into that second chain 1 space here and make a half double crochet. So there we go. So we have worked 5 stitches so far. So from here on out, what we're going to do is we always have 3 double crochets, a chain 1, single crochet, and a chain 1 space. We're going to work 1 half double crochet into each of those stitches and spaces. So we should have 6 stitches in total. So go into that first double crochet, make a half double crochet into the next 2 stitches, make a half double crochet. So that's 3. Half double into our chain 1 space, into our single crochet, make a half double crochet, and into our last chain 1 space, make a half double crochet. And we're going to do this all the way around, working a half double crochet into each stitch and chain 1 space around. Okay guys, we've just completed our last heart stitch. So we just worked a half double crochet into our last chain 1 space, and now we've arrived at our last stitch, this double crochet that's marked by our stitch marker. So we're just going to remove that stitch marker, insert our hook into that double crochet, and make a half double crochet. Mark this with your stitch marker. Okay, so the way we know we're doing this right is we started by making a total of 5 stitches, and we ended with 1 stitch. That makes a total of 6 stitches for our repeat. Okay, find your first stitch of the round, this one marked by our stitch marker. Insert your hook into that stitch, if you can, without removing your stitch marker, and make a slip stitch to close the round. So this is what round 5 looks like, and right now guys, we are looking at the right side of our pot holder. Okay guys, so from here on out, we are going to be repeating rounds 2 to 5 until we get to our desired length of our pot holder. So now that our pot holder is a little bit bigger, it is easier to work along the inside of our pot holder. But if you don't want to do that, what you can just do every single round is flip your work inside out, so that the last round, the back side of those stitches are facing you. Okay guys, so we are at the end of round 21. This is the right side of our pot holder because our hearts are lying flat. At this point, you're going to want to decide which side you like better. Do you like the right side of the pot holder better, or do you like the wrong side? on the wrong side, the hearts are a lot puffier and they look like this. So if you like this side best, then you're gonna make sure that this side is facing you before we close our pot holder. But if you prefer the right side where the hearts lie flat, then just make sure that that side is facing you. And if you would like to, you can try, like if you want your hearts to be a little bit more pronounced, you can go inside your pot holder and you can kind of push your hearts out a little bit. So I'll show you kind of what that looks like. And you can do that with the rest of your hearts. All right, now it's time to close our pot holder. So we're gonna do this with color A. Before you close your pot holder, make sure that all of your strands are either tucked inside of your pot holder or that they're woven in. And we're going to chain 1. Now we're gonna find our first stitch of the round, this one here. We're gonna remove it. And we're gonna insert our hook into that stitch. We're gonna find the stitch, the last stitch marked by our stitch marker, and this is where we're also gonna insert our hook. These are gonna be our 2 matching stitches, and we're gonna make a half double crochet to join them. So now again, we're gonna find our first stitch on the front, we're gonna find the matching stitch on the back side, and we're gonna join them together with a half double crochet. And we're gonna do this all the way across. So when we get to the last stitch here, the last 2 stitches, just insert your hook and push out the back and make your last half double crochet. So this is what our pot holder looks like now that it's closed, and at this point we're going to add our chain circle. This chain circle footage is from a different video, but the process is still the same. So now it's time to add our chain circle. So to do that, we're going to chain 13, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, we're going to find our last half double crochet that we made, and we're going to insert our hook kind of going on a diagonal. So we're going to go under the front loop of the stitch and these 2 loops here on the front side of our stitch. So kind of go on the diagonal like that. So we should have those 3 loops on our hook. Now we're going to make a slip stitch. So yarn over, pull through the loops on your hook and pull through that last loop that you had. And that just closes our chain circle. And now pull up on the loop on your hook and keep pulling to make a nice long tail. Trim it. Thread a yarn needle with your tail. And we're going to find that front loop of our half double crochet, and we're going to go in through the inside of our pot holder, and we're going to kind of poke it out anywhere on the front side. Okay, and that closes our chain circle really nicely. And now what we can do is just insert our yarn needle from front to back so that we bring this yarn to the outside of our pot holder or the back side. We're going to make a knot to secure it. Weave it through a few stitches. And when we're ready, we're going to trim our tail. So this is what our pot holder should look like. All right. Alright guys, that is it for our tutorial today. I hope that you guys enjoy it, and thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below and I will do my best to answer them. And I will see you guys in 2 weeks on Wednesday, December 11th for our 13th and final pot holder in our Crochet Along series. I'm so excited and I hope that you guys are too. Until then, I hope you all have a wonderful day and I will see you next time. Bye.